Thank you for joining us today on the third episode of the Sunshine Podcast here at Sunshine Free Will Baptist Church here in Huntington, West Virginia. Today we are joined by Brother Lee Green.
Hello.
And Brother Levi Johnson.
Greetings.
And I'm Kenny Hatfield. And Lee is going to kind of lead today talking about alcohol and its relationship from a biblical perspective or a Christian perspective versus maybe a worldly perspective. And I know that that's something that there's a lot of disagreement both inside and outside of the church about this topic. And I'm eager to hear about it since when you went through it the first time in Sunday school class, I was unable to be here. So
thank you, Kenny. Before we get started, I want to clarify something. In the email that Levi sent out about all of our topics and how the podcast will go and everything, he said, Lee, on alcohol, this should be entertaining. I just want to clarify, I am not on alcohol. I've not been drinking or anything like that. The topic that I will be talking about is on alcohol. Just kind of wanted to clarify that.
And when you slur, you're slurring your words. It's nervousness, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
to be clear, none of us are partaking in alcohol in the creation of this podcast.
That is correct. Anyways, as Brother Kenny had mentioned, I had talked about this in a Sunday school class a while back, and this was actually from one of our Facebook group questions that was posted, and the poster said, I found this comment on a local news site in regards to alcohol being available to purchase earlier than previously on Sunday. And the comment that he found was, Christians who are complaining about this may need a refresher course in Sunday school. And then they quote out of Proverbs, Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy hearts. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. And that's out of Proverbs 31, verses 6 and 7. So basically, and the way I took this was that whoever originally quoted this is saying that, hey, people drinking alcohol is fine. The Bible tells us to. Go look at Proverbs. That's the way I kind of took that to mean. But today, those are the two verses that we're going to be focusing on. But as Levi has always told us to do, never read a Bible verse. And he means that don't just look at one verse, and you need to look at the context surrounding the verse. You need to look at the rest of the verses, maybe the chapter, the whole book. You need to look at the context of what's going on. I am going to go ahead and have Levi read out of that same book, Proverbs 31, verses 1 through 7.
The words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. What, my son, and what the son of my womb, and what the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink, and forget the law, and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy hearts. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more.
So the main point here that I'll be discussing is about alcohol, the biblical view of alcohol. But there's really two smaller points in the earlier verses here. And if you look at verses 1 through 3, these three verses show that his mother had a great care and connection that she had for her son, the king. But the point I want to make here with these verses is it also shows that parenting never stops, as she was still encouraging him and giving him advice even when he was king. So he was of age, he was an adult, he was a learned person, but she was still encouraging him and giving him advice. So parenting never stops. Unlike the mentality of so many in today's world, her parenting didn't stop at age 18. And for anybody that knows me, that 18 is a big pet peeve of mine. I've heard people say, well, when you turn 18, you're no longer my problem. You're the government's problem or this or that or something like that. I've never liked that. I'm 45 years old and I still need my parents. They still parent me. They still, give me instruction and everything. And I'm thankful for that. So that's just one little note that I wanted to make. But the warning she gives to her son is basically don't do things that will destroy kings or that will lead you down the wrong path. She warns him first about giving his strength to women. For a king, or really anyone in a high-ranking or leadership role, this could be easy to do. It may be easy for someone in leadership to abuse their power and use it for their own pleasure. She's warning him against sexual immorality because this gives away a man's strength. And even though in the context here, it's the mother talking to her son, so most of this is going to be geared towards men, the principle still applies to women as well. So this is not just for men. The principle applies to both men and women. Sexual sins, like most sins, will take you both spiritually and physically to places that you shouldn't be, and will zap you of your strength of body, your strength of mind, your reason, and your wisdom. So for reference of that, let's look at Proverbs chapter 5. I'm going to have Brother Kenny read verses 3 through 5 and then 8 through 10.
All right, so verse 3 says, "For the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps follow the path to Sheol." And then to verse 8, "Keep your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your years to the merciless, lest strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of a foreigner."
So this takes away our honor, and this zaps our strength. But another way that it hurts us, it hurts our strength of witness. It's almost impossible to effectively witness for the Lord when you are willfully committing sin or living in a sinful lifestyle, whether it's sexual immorality or whatever the vice may be. The worst thing, though, is that it hurts your relationship with God. Biblically speaking, we see this principle with David and Bathsheba. David gave his strength to a woman, and it led to him being weak in spirit and ultimately caused him to commit murder. So sexual sins zap your strength. So that's the first warning that she gives to her son, the king. Verses 4 through 5 talk about another thing that kings, and really anybody in leadership positions, should stay away from, and that's alcohol. In fact, it's so important that this principle is repeated 3 times in verse 4 alone. Now, some may argue that the Bible doesn't prohibit you from drinking alcohol, and to a degree that may be correct. There may not be a specific verse in the Bible that says, "Thou shalt not drink alcohol," but I think that thought is a bit misguided and really even abused at times. Levi, if you would read Romans 13, verses 13 and 14, please.
"Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put ye on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make not provision for the flesh, to fulfill the lusts thereof."
And I think that, "and make not provision for the flesh," is a key phrase in those verses. If we know that we're going to be tempted in a certain situation, stay out of it. Stuff like that. Let's not make provision for our flesh. So while an argument might be made by some that the Bible doesn't specifically forbid alcohol, and I think when they argue like that, it's just justifying them drinking, the Bible is clear that they should not drink to the point of being drunk, as that verse said. There's no argument about that with this verse. While it may not totally forbid alcohol, it really all but forbids the use of it. Not only does it say not to get drunk, but as we'll see in these next couple of verses, we should not even drink to the point of having your judgment impaired. Going back to Proverbs 31, verses 4 and 5, it says, "It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted." So we all know how alcohol can impair judgment and deaden our senses. But these verses and this concept aren't limited to just a king or a president, but really implies the idea of anyone in a leadership position. So let's take Brother Kenny, for example. He's in insurance sales, and he has about 3 or 4 employees under his authority and guided by what he decides. So an impaired decision could affect a number of people. And those people, the employees under you, it could affect their family members and everything. Now, hold on. Kenny just slid me a note. It says, "Advertise my agency, but don't say I wrote this down."
That is factually inaccurate.
Sorry about that. Anyways, Now you might say that, I don't have employees under me, so this doesn't apply to me. Well, do you have a family? Do you have a spouse? Do you have children? Decisions that you make is going to affect your family. So then you're a leader in your household, and decisions will affect your household. Now, you might say, well, maybe I'm by myself. I don't have a family, I don't have kids, but still, decisions that you make will still affect others. If you choose to drink alcohol and you're not drunk, you've had a few, and then you choose to go out and get into an automobile with reflexes that are not where they should be, impaired slightly, that could still lead to something disastrous. But anyways, the whole point I'm trying to make is that it is essential that our judgment or abilities are not impaired in any way. So as a leader in any capacity, whether it's over many, over few, or just yourself, you should voluntarily set aside alcohol. Our decision, even those that seemingly won't affect others, can affect many. So finishing up here, in the next couple of verses, Lemuel's mother states that there are more appropriate drinkers rather than a king, or someone whose affected judgment could harm others. Verses 6 and 7 says, "Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those who be of heavy hearts. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more." Her first example is in verse 6, is to give alcohol to somebody on death row. A condemned criminal could use this and have his senses weakened before being executed, thus making the execution less painful or obvious to him or her. And we see in the Bible that intoxicating drinks were mercifully given to condemned criminals to lessen the effect of the torture on their bodies. In fact, in Matthew chapter 27, verse 34, Jesus, while hanging on the cross, he was offered vinegar to drink mixed with gall. So this is a type of wine or alcohol, but he would not drink. Christ wanted his senses fully awake to experience the fullness of the torture, so nothing could be said to make light of what he went through on the cross. This shows his great love for us. Now, the second example in verse 7 is to give alcohol to those with a heavy heart so that they will forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. David Guzik says, "It isn't that there are no consequences for drinking in these two cases, but the consequences have little impact in comparison to the king or leader." I think Charles Spurgeon said it best, and anybody who knows me, whenever I teach, I have to use a Charles Spurgeon quote. And this quote says, "If any man should be wicked enough to draw from this verse the inference that he would be able to forget his misery and poverty by drinking, he would soon find himself woefully mistaken. For if he had one misery before, he would have 10 miseries afterwards. And if he was previously poor, he would be in still greater poverty afterwards. Those who fly to the bottle for consolation might as soon fly to hell to find a heaven, and instead of helping them forget their poverty, drunkenness would only sink them still more deeply in the mire." So to use these verses to say that the Bible says it's okay to drink alcohol is a classic example of how Scripture can be quoted verbatim but not be biblical at all. And we need to always remember that Satan himself quoted Scripture verbatim to further his own agenda. So there was nothing biblical at all about that. In conclusion, basically, it tells us not to get drunk with alcohol, but it also tells us not to have our senses impaired by alcohol. So if you can keep away from those two things, then I'm not going to say yay or nay about that. But it definitely tells us not to do those two. That's what I've got to say on the topic about alcohol. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to our host, Brother Kenny.
All right, Lee, I appreciate you going through all that. As you were going through that, I started thinking about how people will approach that topic of alcohol or anything really and, want to ask maybe a pastor or a deacon or someone at church in leadership about something like that. Is it okay to do this thing? And we already know, they know already that the thing that they're asking about, they're looking for a reason to partake in those things. And I'm not excluded from that probably either. I've probably had those same thoughts or questions from time to time, but then And it shouldn't keep us from asking them. It's just that that's where we end up.
A quote that I heard a long time ago back in high school is said, advice is what we ask for when we already know the answer but wish we didn't. And I think that kind of falls into that. If you have to ask if it's right, I mean, if you're going to a pastor and trying to get permission from the pastor, you pretty much know that this is probably something you shouldn't be doing. Even if it's just a conviction of your own self, if you're having to ask a pastor, if you're trying to get permission, if you're trying to get somebody to give you permission, then you probably should stay away from it, regardless of what it is.
Exactly.
And it's really good advice that the Bible gives. I mean, you don't want to make decisions under the influence of something that warps your decision making. I can't even take many cold medicines because I hate the way it feels when I can't think straight, when I can't think clearly. So I can't imagine, doing that intentionally. I don't really have any relationship with that whole idea. So I'm not here to outright condemn it, but I really can't comprehend that whole idea of wanting to be drunk. Just being able to have sound and clear judgment is so important to me that I wish more people were more interested in that. And I think the Bible gives sage advice on that.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's hard enough for me to think clearly sober, so much less drunk. So, all right, Brother Lee, we appreciate you going through that with us and leading that conversation. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back.
Hey, while we're taking a break, we'd like to invite you to visit our website, sunshinechurchwv.org. That's sunshinechurchwv.org. And there you'll find information about our church services, links to our social media pages, Pastor Jody's blog, and if you go to the Announcements tab, you'll see a link called Sunshine Questions, where you can submit your questions or comments that we may just feature in a future episode. If you are listening to this episode in early 2022, then most likely you already attend our church and are listening to us on the app or at our website. However, if somehow you stumbled upon us from some time in the distant future, we welcome you just the same. If you live in the tri-state area of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio, we'd like to invite you to our church at 2111 James River Road, Huntington, West Virginia, 25701. If you're outside of our area, you can join our services on Facebook. To see more about our services both in person and online at our website, sunshinechurchwv.org. And now we'll get back to close out this episode of the Sunshine Podcast. All right, we're back. We just talked about alcohol, and so I'm going to put a good segue in here. So they used to have things called blue laws that would outlaw selling of alcohol on Sundays, and here's my segue. We're going to talk about fun blue laws and other strange things like that. So guys, I'm just going to read off some kind of crazy things that are on the books, or at the time of the writing of these things were on the books of some state laws. I'm just going to give them to you and see what you think. So the first one here is in Georgia, one may not carry an ice cream cone in their back pocket if it's Sunday.
But any other day of the week is fine.
Of course, yes.
Makes sense.
It's amazing, like, just when you start thinking about how does that become something? Like, something happened at some point, who knows, 100 years ago or 50 years ago or whenever that was put in place. And the scenarios to where, how did this person get into that situation that's why they did that? I have no idea. It would be hilarious to just know that story.
Somebody got in trouble with an ice cream cone in their back pocket, and it was on a Sunday, and maybe they were just trying to not confuse them with other people with an ice cream cone in their back pocket. I know he had an ice cream cone in his back pocket. There's 16 people here.
Right.
Well, the suits are so expensive that you don't want to ruin your suit by sitting down with an ice cream cone in your pocket.
In Arizona, picture taking is illegal before noon on Sunday.
Normally, that's when you want to take your pictures, on Sunday morning. That way, that's your
Sunday best.
Your Sunday best. So, do you have the foundation of these blue laws, or did you just find them?
Nah, I just got the laws.
Gotcha. That's
like I said. Some of these probably are not in thing anymore, but
they probably some of them probably. I've read something recently where there was like a lot that were still in, but like obviously ignored because they were so absurd.
They're either unenforced or completely unenforceable.
Right. And it's like the legislature hasn't taken the time to get rid of them.
But hopefully they're getting rid of stopping daylight savings soon. So we'll see.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you're listening to this later in 2022, right now, the Senate has passed a bill to keep daylight savings, but it's going to take like 2 years. You'll be able to tell us in the future if it actually happened or not. Right here in the past, we don't know. In Minnesota, specifically St. Cloud, Minnesota, you cannot eat a hamburger on Sunday.
Some of these, it's just, I don't have a comment. Are they thinking like gluttony or something? Like, I don't know exactly what's going
But
through.
12 hot dogs is okay.
Yeah. It's funny. Probably some guy who like didn't own a place that sold hamburgers, and his competition sold hamburgers, and so he got elected and made a law that you can't eat hamburgers at his competition down the street.
That sounds reasonable.
Corruption.
Yeah,
That's where all these are from, corruption in government.
This is one of my favorite ones. In Ohio, it is illegal to fish for a whale on Sunday. Because of all the oceans
Right.
in landlocked Ohio. Mostly landlocked. One of those Great Lakes whales, I guess.
Is that real? Did you confirm these?
I did confirm them on a website that listed them.
Gotcha. Okay. That's
I'm just trying to picture somebody sitting out on the dock with their little fishing pole trying to catch this 50-foot long whale.
yeah. It almost seems like someone was trying to say, yeah, I'm trying to catch a whale, like just like a big fish or something like that. And then I don't know. It's like the wording of these things, like like maybe no fishing. I don't know. I'm not sure, but to say the whale specifically makes it extremely odd.
We've got some people at church can relate to this one. You cannot walk down the Broadway street with chickens held upside down by their feet. That's in Georgia.
Who are you specifically thinking of? I'm kidding. Don't name names. Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
I don't either. Like they're getting stranger and stranger.
Speaking of church, we weren't, but I am now. In Alabama, it is illegal to make a person in church laugh by wearing a fake mustache on Sunday.
Oh my!
Oh gosh!
So that someone did that, and someone got really mad, and they just went and got really mad, and like
Somebody put on a fake mustache and caused somebody else to laugh for like 5 to 7 minutes and disrupt the service.
Right, something like that happened.
Cue the sound clip. Sound clip.
Flashback to the time Lee totally lost it.
Oh gosh. Lee has lost it. He's lost.
I'm gone.
Oh goodness. I've never seen Lee laugh this hard. Oh goodness.
Now back to the fun thing about blue laws.
Someone took it overboard and they passed a law on it. It's just hilarious.
In Massachusetts, it is illegal to go to bed without bathing. However, in the same state, law prohibits bathing on Sundays.
Wow.
So that's saying
Well, I agree with the first one for
Yeah.
the most part. I mean, especially if depending on your level of, filth. I agree with that. If you have access to those things, but
well, Sunday you shouldn't be working anyways, so you're not working up a sweat, so you should still be clean from the bath on Saturday.
You found the loophole.
yeah, logically but still illegal because you're not supposed to bath.
Well, that's right, but you're not working, so you're not working up a sweat, so you're not
Right, but the law is that you're supposed to bath every day.
right.
So you're breaking that law.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
does it
contradictory.
say you're supposed to bathe every day?
Yes.
Oh,
Well, assuming you go to bed.
Yeah,
on that
assuming
day.
you can't go to bed on Saturday. You have to wait until Sunday night, or maybe I said that wrong.
And finally, in Maine, Car sales are prohibited on Sundays unless it is equipped with onboard plumbing.
Again, that's so specific. It's like all you can sell is what, like motorhomes and campers or something? Like, I don't know why that's a thing. Like, like I try to logically think through these of like someone just doesn't want people to spend their money on their competitors' stuff on Sunday. I don't know. It's just weird.
I'm sorry, guys, but I'm just picturing this like F-150, and the driver's seat is a toilet.
Oh my.
And that's also where this particular podcast went down.
Yeah, this might be a good time to wrap this episode and move on to closing this episode out. So we appreciate you joining us for this episode, and we hope that you'll come back for more, and you can hear some more crazy thoughts that we might have, but also hopefully some good biblical teaching. So thanks for joining us.